now. Yes, I didn't see him. What are you looking so sad about, Champ?
I'm surprised at you. I mean, I'm really insulted. That's not right, what you just said.
What do you mean, what I just said?
I mean, I'm getting things about. I'm late getting on, but you talk. I said something about the greatest heavyweight champ, man. I'm a hometown man, and you talking about Joe Louis, man. Joe Louis wouldn't be nothing for me. Joe, I tell you, Joe, do you think you would have stood a chance with me?
Well, Craig, one time during my career, I was on a Formula One tour.
I would have been a bum compared to you.
What's happening, my people? It's Cass Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. That's right. You know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Boxtorian bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it. Can't get enough of it. Miss Cass, BBO Sports TV. Salute to everyone and welcome to another episode of Cass Sports, the Boxtorian. Today, boxing in the States, Wisconsin, has the family today. Salute BBO. How are you today? We're going to be, this is the next to the last boxing in the States, Wisconsin today. We're going to look at some little brief history of boxing in Wisconsin and some other significant events that happened in Wisconsin concerning boxing and some boxers from Wisconsin. And then we're going to finish up we was talking about the Jake LaMotta and Sugar Ray Robinson series yesterday when we were interrupted. I couldn't get back in. So we're going to start that again because we were right at the beginning. I think we were right up to their first fight. So we're going to continue with that today and a few other things on Cass Sports, the Boxtorian today, bringing you all of that boxing history. Okay, but first, for the highlights of boxing history today, we are down to the junior middleweight division. No, welterweight. Welterweight today, 147. Yeah, junior middleweight was yesterday. We did get through that. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about the junior middleweights. Welterweights. We're going to talk about the top 10 welterweights of all time today. It's Thursday, getting late in this big week of boxing history. I guess we got the press conferences today. We had some fights this morning. B. Norman did his thing. Yeah, had some fights this morning. Yeah, matter of fact, I was over there on BVO watching them for a while this morning until I had to go. And I missed the Norman fight. I'm gonna have to watch the replay of it. But yeah, BVO did a nice fight call this morning. And yeah, B. Norman did his thing, retained his belt, went over to Japan and did it, showing, he can go on the road and do his thing. So yeah, great performance by B. Norman. Congratulations. And we're on to this weekend. That started the weekend out. Okay, but let's get it to the highlights of boxing history. Look at the top 10 welterweights of all time. Welterweight was one of the original 8 divisions before we had the juniors and the supers. Remember, we had flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, heavyweight. Yeah, welterweight was one of the original 8. Yep. So it's 147 is the weight limit there. So let's look at these 10 top fighters from 147 to start today's show out. Okay, first, Thomas Hearns, the Hitman. 61 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw, 48 knockouts for the Hitman. Now, Thomas Hearns was a rangy, hard-hitting boxer who might have been the hardest 147-pound puncher ever. And he was an excellent boxer, too. And he was adept at keeping his opponents at the end of his sharp jab and destructive right hand. And he also fought during one of the best eras of boxing for fighters around the welterweight division, and he held his own doing so. Now, had Hearns come along during a more weaker welterweight era, he might have been appreciated a little bit more. Now, his most notable welterweight fight, after outboxing Sugar Ray Leonard for much of their first fight in 1981, Hearns was stopped in round 14 in one of the greatest fights in the welterweight division's esteemed history. Yeah, Hearns Leonard, that will go down as one of the greatest there. For King's fight, too. Okay. At number, we're going to go from 10 to 1. Number 10, the Hitman. Number 9, Barney Ross. We go back to some of these old school fighters too, when we're doing these top 10 lists. Can't forget them. That's Barney Ross on the left. Barney Ross, 72 wins, 4 losses, 3 draws, 22 knockouts. Now, Barney Ross was a cerebral boxer with almost unparalleled stamina. Barney Ross, Tony Canzoneri, and Jimmy McLaurin were to the 1930s welterweight division what Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, and Roberto Duran were to the 1980s welterweight division, okay? And Jimmy McLaurin and Ross proved to be the best of the 3. Yeah, Ross was the Sugar Ray Leonard out of that group. Now, Ross fought during a great welterweight era, and he held the title twice in a 4-year span. And his most notable fight at welterweight. After splitting the first fight with Jimmy McLaurin, Ross took the rubber match. They flipped the first 2. Ross took the rubber match in 1935 by a 15-round decision to recapture the welterweight title. Barney Ross. Okay. Number 8, Emil Griffith. Emil Griffith. There's Emil. Okay. Emil Griffith comes in at number 8, all-time great welterweights. 85 wins, 24 losses, 2 draws, 23 knockouts for Emil. Now, Emil Griffith was a fast-handed fighter who had decent power to go along with an ability to fight through adversity. He was an exciting boxer, and most historians believe he was probably even better than he showed in the ring. After defeating Benny Purd in 1962. Now, Griffith knocked Purd out in round 12 of a brutal battle that tragically led to Purd slipping into a coma and never came out of it. He died. And Emil never was the same after that, understandably. Now, his most notable fight at welterweight, his win over Purd, was probably the last time anyone saw how good Griffith really was. He fought on for 15 more years after that fight, won titles in multiple weight classes, but understandably, he never fought again with the same vigor as he did before that death in the ring of his opponent, Benny Purd. Yeah, never was the same. Jose Napoles, I've seen him before and after that. He definitely wasn't the same fighter after that, understandably. Number 7, Jose Napoles. That's Jose on the left. 81 wins, 7 losses, 54 knockouts. Now, Jose Napoles was a good boxer who fought with a smooth style and great determination. He had excellent footwork and was a precise puncher with great timing. Now, for a contemporary comparison, Napoles was similar to Juan Manuel Marquez in that he was an impressive combination puncher, but he probably employed better defense than Marquez and threw more punches. But similar to Marquez, but better defensively, and he threw more. Had a higher output than Marquez. Now, Napoles' most notable welterweight fight. Napoles outfought Emil Griffith over 15 rounds in 1969. The fight solidified Napoles' already impressive credentials as a great welterweight. Jose Napoles, he was a Customatos fighter. Okay. Number 6. Number 6. Greatest welterweights of all time. The Money Man. Floyd Pretty Boy / Money Mayweather. Okay. Now, Floyd Mayweather Jr. competed between 1996 and 2017. He retired with an undefeated record of 50-0, 27 knockouts, and won 15 major world championships spanning 5 weight classes, from super featherweight to junior middleweight. This includes the Ring Magazine title in 3 weight classes. Now, as an amateur, Floyd won a bronze medal in the featherweight division at the 1996 Olympics. Now, you know what his most notable welterweight fight is. There goes knocking the lamp over. Yeah, Floyd's most notable, and 50-0, 27 knockouts. His most notable welterweight fight was Floyd defeated Manny Pacquiao by unanimous decision over 12 rounds to unequivocally stamp his mark as the best fighter of their generation. Now, neither Floyd nor Manny was at his best, both fighting on the wrong side of age 35. But the fight was tremendously important to each man's legacy. Yes. And Floyd won that one. Okay. So, coming in at number 5. Kid Gavilan. There's the kid with his glove up. Kid Gavilan. Okay, these are the greatest welterweights of all time. Kid Gavilan, number 5. 108 wins, 30 losses, 5 draws, 28 knockouts for the kid. Now, Gavilan was a whirlwind of activity. He was a tremendously exciting fighter to watch and was one of the more aggressive great welterweight champions in history. Now, while he didn't possess outstanding power, he threw his punches in volume, as if he did anyway, similar to the way Timothy Bradley did, in this era. But as good as Bradley was, Gavilan was way better. He was fast, vicious, and confident enough to face the prime version of Sugar Ray Robinson twice. and gave Sugar Ray all he could handle. He also defeated notable great Carmen Basilio in 1954, and his most notable fight at welterweight was after losing a spirited 10-round fight against Sugar Ray Robinson in 1948. Gavilan challenged Robinson again the next year for Robinson's welterweight title. Robinson was just too strong for the kid, and Sugar Ray won by a 15-round decision. Okay, now we go way back. Coming in at number 4, Barbados Joe Walcott. This is the original Joe. This is Jersey Joe Walcott's idol, who he named himself after. Now, Barbados Joe, 95 wins, 25 losses, 24 draws, 61 knockouts. That's a lot of draws. You know, back then, a lot of racism, you know, a lot of those draws were really wins. That's why he had so many draws, 24, right? Now, obviously, it's difficult to rank fighters from over 100 years ago. Times have changed much in the sweet science since then. Now, there are limited to no films available of such men as Barbados Joe. So, it's here boxing historians take the word from those who came before them. Now, judging by most accounts, Barbados Joe Walcott was one of the hardest punchers in boxing history and one of the best fighters ever produced. Walcott ranked number 4 in the International Boxing Research Organization's member poll in 2005. And according to the Fight City's Michael Carberg boxing publication Fight City, both historians Ned Fleischer, Ring Magazine's founder, and Charlie Rose both rated Walcott as the best welterweight they had ever seen. His most notable welterweight fight, in 1904, Walcott scored draws against Sam Langford, a man who competed all the way up to heavyweight and arguably deserved a title shot against champion Jack Johnson. And he also fought Joe Gans, the world lightweight champion from 1902 to 1908. Barbados Joe Walcott. Top 10 welterweights of all time. Number 3, Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard comes in at number 3. Okay, oh, there it is. Number 3, Sugar Ray Leonard. Okay, Sugar Ray, 36 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw, 25 knockouts. Okay, for Sugar Ray Leonard. Now, Ray Leonard could do everything. He could box, he could brawl, he could fight on the inside, he could make his opponents miss. Taking the nickname of his idol, Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard lived up to the billing. Now, the relative limited number of fights he participated in is due to multiple retirements and is outweighed by the outstanding competition he faced and defeated during his career. Leonard was part of one of the best 4-man round robins in boxing history, featuring Leonard, Roberto Duran, Thomas Hearns, and Marvin Hagler. And he proved to be the superior competitor of the 4. In his most notable welterweight fight, Leonard's come from behind round 14 knockout of Thomas Hearns was probably Leonard's most sensational win at 147. He was outboxed for much of the fight and down on all 3 scorecards when he handed the extraordinarily gifted Hearns his first loss as a professional. That was both of their most notable fighter at welterweight. Hearns and Leonard won for both of them. Okay, coming in at number 2, greatest welterweights of all time, Homicide Henry Armstrong. Homicide Hank Henry Armstrong. Okay, Henry Armstrong. Okay. Now, Armstrong is regarded by most boxing historians as not only one of the top welterweights ever, but also one of the best overall boxers ever to fight in any weight class. He was outrageously strong, aggressive, and active as a fighter, and he holds the welterweight division record for most title defenses, 19. Now, if you never went back and looked at any film of Henry Armstrong, All you gotta do is look at Aaron Pryor. Aaron Pryor was the reincarnation of Henry Armstrong. You know, yeah. Same style, swinging punches from everywhere, non-stop for 15 rounds. Now, amazingly enough, Armstrong accomplished all those defenses in just 2 years of work, 19, right? Most at welterweight in just 2 years. Armstrong was a rapid-firing buzzsaw in the ring, and most everyone he fought while he was at his best was simply the wood. Henry Armstrong. Y'all know who number one is at welterweight. Don't even have to say it. Mr. Pound for Pound himself, Sugar Ray Robinson. 173 wins, 19 losses, 6 draws, and he's a member of the 100 Knockout Club with 109 knockouts. Sugar Ray Robinson. Okay? Number one welterweight of all time. Sugar Ray Robinson is the standard bearer for all great fighters. Even in a boxing world that so desperately wants to take Muhammad Ali for it is his word about being the greatest. Most, if not all, legitimate boxing historians consider Sugar Ray Robinson the greatest fighter who has ever lived. One notable exception is Springs Toledo, author of Gods of War, who within the book places Robinson number 2 behind Harry Graham. Robinson's best weight was 147. Robinson began his career at age 19 and with 128 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws with 84 knockouts, 11 years into his career. The vast majority of which was fought at 147 pounds and below. From 1943 to 1951, Robinson enjoyed a 91-fight unbeatable streak, okay? He was a fast-handed boxer with exert technical skill and knockout power in both hands. He went almost a decade without losing, 8 years, okay? His most notable win at welterweight. In Robinson's first fight with Kid Gavilan, he found himself staggered in the early rounds before rallying for a 10-round decision win. Gavilan, of course, would go on to have one of the best welterweight careers in history. And there you have it, the top 10 welterweights of all time, okay? So now we're gonna look at the boxing in the States today, Wisconsin, okay? Let's get that going. Oh no. Okay. Boxing in the States, Wisconsin. Let's get that going for you. How's everybody this Thursday afternoon? The profile tomorrow is going to be the life and career of the Boston Strong Boy, John L. Sullivan. Okay. Last champion in the bare knuckle era, first champion in the glove era, John L. Sullivan. Okay. But right now, boxing in the States, Wisconsin. All right. We're 5 minutes early, but you know, we can get started. This was supposed to take until 2:30, but let's get started because we got some other stuff we're going to get to today too. We're going to finish up the Sugar Ray Robinson versus Jake LaMotta. We're going to look at that 6 series of fights they had today. We just got started yesterday, so we're going to finish that off today. But let's get into Wisconsin first. Boxing in the States. Tomorrow we will look at the top 10 junior middleweights of all time. And when we finish going through each division, looking at the all-time greats, we're going to go back and start at the heavyweight and look at the current top 10 greats, and top 10 in each division. We're going to go back to heavyweight, come through every division, and look at the current top 10. Okay? So, yeah. Okay. Bruce Gass, Boxing Jazz, and more in the building. What's up, Bruce Gass? How are you today? Good to see you. Boxing in the States again, Wisconsin. We just got one more state, Wyoming. And then we've completed the entire alphabet, okay? And remember, I was telling y'all, we was talking about, remember the NCAA boxing had a tournament and everything was big from the 30s to like the 60s. In the early 60s, the tournament ended and a lot of schools dropped boxing because a boxer died as a result of his injury suffered in the ring during a tournament. That boxer was from Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, and we're going to cover that today. Exactly what happened to lead up to it and how he died in that fight. He was from, we've talked about him before, but he was actually from the University of Wisconsin. So we're going to cover that today. Yep. His name was Charlie Moore. We're going to talk about that one. Okay. Boxing in the States, Wisconsin. Okay, boxing in Wisconsin has a rich history, particularly at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where it was a dominant intercollegiate sport from the 1930s to the 1960s. Now, the UW Badgers were known as the Notre Dame of college boxing during this period, winning numerous national championships and hosting NCAA tournaments. You know, Notre Dame was the thing in football during that period, and University of Wisconsin was known as the Notre Dame of college boxing, right? Now, the sport was also popular at the amateur level, with the Wisconsin Golden Gloves tournaments attracting large crowds. Now, intercollegiate boxing at UW-Madison, the early years. Now, UW-Madison began intercollegiate boxing in 1933, holding its first dual match with St. Thomas College, right? And the dominance. The Badgers became a powerhouse, winning 8 national titles and hosting 7 NCAA tournaments from 1932 to 1960. Popularity. Boxing was second only to football in popularity, with matches drawing crowds of almost 15,000. And then that tragedy. The sport was tragically ended after the death of UW boxer Charlie Moore at the 1960 NCAA tournament. Legacy. Now, despite being discontinued, the legacy of UW boxing lives on, with the sport still fondly remembered by many. Amateur boxing in Wisconsin. Now, the Wisconsin Golden Gloves tournaments were the state's premier amateur boxing event, attracting large crowds and hundreds of fighters. And boxing was popular at the amateur level, with various gyms and clubs offering training to both native and non-native Native American boxers. And while the sport has declined in popularity, it still endures in some areas, particularly among youth and at clubs like the United Community Center and the Northside Gym, right? And Native American boxing, strong tradition. Now, American Indians have a long history of boxing in Wisconsin, particularly at the amateur level. And various tribal members have won championships at regional, state, national, and military levels. Native boxing champions are highly respected in their community. And boxing provides an opportunity for young people to participate in a sport outside of school, okay? Now, Milwaukee, Wisconsin was big in boxing. Okay, excuse me for one moment, please. Yeah, we're gonna talk about Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1 second. I gotta get my tablet. Excuse me for like 30 seconds. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, Milwaukee, Wisconsin had a big boxing history. Let's talk about that. It's boxing in the States, Wisconsin today. And we're gonna finish up the Sugar Ray Robinson, Jake LaMotta series 2 that we started yesterday. We were interrupted. Okay. Let's see. Let's check out the chat real quick. Okay. Yeah. Salute everybody that's in here so far. Hit the like. Appreciate you stopping by. Cast Sports Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Bringing you all that boxing history. Okay. Let's talk about boxing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Now, boxing's historical trajectory in Milwaukee parallel its rise and fall on the national scene. Okay, local fascination with prize fighting faded in the second half of the 20th century, although amateur boxing has continued into the 21st century. The popularity of boxing grew in Milwaukee during the second half of the 19th century. At the time, boxing was a disorganized period of bare knuckle fights that often resulted in permanent injuries and public outrage. The Marquis of Queensberry rules, drafted by Welshman John G. Chambers in 1867 and thereafter universally adopted, made gloves mandatory and established the 10-second knockout clock. These reforms helped temper opposition to the sport. Now, between 1869 and 1913, prize fighting was illegal in Milwaukee, but local authorities often turned a blind eye and allowed clandestine matches to take place. By 1915, boxing had undergone a certain degree of professionalization, with the State Athletic Commission licensing clubs and referees and requiring fighters to undergo physical examination before stepping into the ring, all in an effort to quell public criticism. Now, questions still remained, however, about just who could box in Milwaukee, and participation remained limited, for the most part, to white fighters, okay? Now, by the time Jack Johnson became the first Black world heavyweight champion in 1908, ushering in the search for the Great White Hope, Milwaukee had established itself as one of the nation's top boxing venues. Walter H. Leisinger of the Milwaukee Athletic Club spearheaded the effort to keep African Americans out of the ring until he permitted a boxer named Tiger Flowers to fight local white phenomenon Henry King Tuttle in 1930. On April 11th, nearly 8,000 spectators at the auditorium witnessed the fall of the color barrier in Milwaukee. Professional boxing continued to attract huge crowds in Milwaukee through the 1960s. An estimated 135,000 people attended a lakefront fight between Cowboy Billy Pryor and Tony Zale in Juneau Park in 1941, while TMJ also broadcast the fight. The time and place represented the apex of pro boxing's appeal in Milwaukee. Since then, the amateur rings have maintained the sport's presence in the area. Okay? Now, the mid-20th century also witnessed amateur boxing's glory days in Milwaukee. Since the early 1930s, the Wisconsin Golden Gloves tournaments have been the state's premier amateur boxing event. Sponsored and promoted by the Milwaukee Journal between 1937 and 1955, the series attracted several hundred amateur fighters and drew tens of thousands to the Milwaukee Auditorium and the Eagles Club in the 1950s and 1960s. Terrell Cameron in the building. What's up, Terrell? Good to see you today. Boxing in the States, Milwaukee today, Terrell. I appreciate you, Terrell Cameron. Regular Cast Sports Support. Appreciate you 100%, Terrell. Okay, let's continue. We're just talking about a little history of boxing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin right now. Okay? The history of boxing in Milwaukee. Now, boxing's popularity at both the professional and amateur levels has declined since the 1960s. Local boxing historian Pete Ehrman has pointed to poor promotion, substandard coaching, and inconsistent governance of the sport. At the same time, critics continue to emphasize the danger posed by frequent head injuries, further clouding the sport's future. Now, as a fringe activity, boxing in Milwaukee endures in places such as former boxer Israel Acosta's United Community Center and the late Al Moreland's Northside Gyms, which afford inner city youth a chance to learn the sport. Okay, so that was a little history on boxing in Milwaukee. Now, like I was saying, remember the boxer we always talked about with you, how big boxing was in the NCAA tournament at one time, like between the 1930s and 1960s. And then the tournament was discontinued because the boxer died because of some injuries he suffered in the ring. And a lot of colleges dropped boxing. And that boxer was a member of the University of Wisconsin team. So let's talk about that. Since today is boxing in Wisconsin, right? So yeah, let's talk about that. And his name was Charlie Moore. Here's Charlie right there. Yeah, he was the boxer that died that we always talk about. Okay, yeah, appreciate you, Terrell. Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of times people be here and don't comment, but yeah, I know you always are around the building, Terrell. All right. Now, yeah, we're going to talk. That's Charlie Moore. He was the boxer that I always talked about that died and caused the tournament, NCAA tournament of boxing to be discontinued. And a lot of colleges dropped the sport. He was a member of the University of Wisconsin team. So let's talk about it today. This is boxing in the state of Wisconsin. Now, the most popular University of Wisconsin sport of its day disappeared from campus with one swift and terrible blow. One swift and terrible blow. Okay? Now, this is not really a story about Chandler Davis, but perhaps he's the best place to begin the story. Now, throughout the spring of the 2014 semester, Chandler, a UW undergraduate studying economics and Chinese, spent a fair amount of time balancing homework with interviews for Madison television stations, newspapers, and magazines. His claim to local fame, launching and maintaining the first boxing club of any kind to be officially allowed on the UW campus in 54 years, okay? This was like 2004, after he was trying to bring boxing back since it had been discontinued in 1960 after their death in the ring, okay? Now for Chandler, boxing was never about the publicity. As a teenager, he regularly traveled 45 minutes from his Beverly Hills High School to train at a gym in East Los Angeles. If you ask Chandler why he likes boxing so much, he can't really say, but the sport runs in the blood. Chandler's father, Kevin Davis, grew up boxing in Delavon, Wisconsin, and he joined an off-campus club during his own college years at the UW, right? So when Chandler came to visit campus, one of his top questions was where he could spar in his spare time. To his and his father's astonishment, the answer was nowhere, at least nowhere on the university campus, or nowhere on university grounds. Chandler just figured boxing wasn't as big of a deal in the Midwest as it was at home on the West Coast. So he decided to get the intramural club off the ground himself. So he set about the task immediately after enrolling at the University of Wisconsin in fall 2012. And his father suggested he get in touch with his own former boxing trainer, Bob Lynch, to see if he could help. Chandler did, and the three got together for dinner. That night, Chandler heard the name Charlie Moore for the first time. And this brings us to what our story is really about. How the most popular UW sport of its day could disappear with one swift and terrible blow. And how big of a deal Chandler's small boxing club just might be. Okay? Mike Mazik. What's up, Mike Mazik? How are you today? Boxing in the States, Wisconsin. And remember, Mike, we talked about the boxer that died at the NCAA tournament that caused boxing to be eliminated from the tournament. That boxer was a member of the University of Wisconsin team. So we're going to go deeper into that story today. That's where we're at now. He was from the University of Wisconsin, Charlie Moore. Okay. So, according to UW Athletics records, the first boxing match on campus occurred in 1898. A well-known football player and eventual coach, John Richards, sparred against a heavyweight opponent in a hastily constructed ring outside a music hall, and Richards won. But college boxing didn't truly come to the fore until after World War I. The soldiers who sparred on military bases as part of their fitness training had become college students with a hobby. The elite Eastern universities were the first to establish teams, and boxing quickly spread nationwide, becoming a varsity sport at the UW in the early 1930s. In 1934, administrators convinced the 26-year-old boxer at the University of St. Thomas to relocate to Madison, Wisconsin, and become head coach of the Badger team. His name was John Walsh, and he would go on to become college boxing's equivalent of Barry Alvarez, big-time college football coach back in the day, okay? Now, under Walsh, UW boxing won 8 NCAA national championships, starting in 1939. The Badgers also went undefeated in 9 seasons and didn't suffer a home loss until 1945. With the wins came public enthusiasm. Frankly, I think the fact that they were so successful is what really got people excited about the sport here, says Doug Moe, the Wisconsin State Journal newspaper columnist, who literally wrote the book on UW boxing, Lords of the Ring, which in 2012 was optioned for a movie. So by the late 1940s, big-name boxing matches at the Wisconsin Fieldhouse were drawing crowds of almost 15,000, and the sport was second only to football in popularity. Now, despite the university's efforts to encourage civility, fans established a boisterous reputation over the years. Boxing did not attract a hoity-toity crowd, Moe says. When hockey started to get big in Madison, it was that boxing crowd that gravitated toward it, toward hockey. Okay? That rowdiness raised concerns. David Feldman, the professor of political science, who would eventually play a starring role in college boxing's downfall, was shocked by the temper of the boxing crowds. And the shock stuck with him until 1982, when he recounted to a UW historian his experience at a boxing match. He said, "All around me, people were standing on their feet and screaming, 'Kill him, kill him.' And I said to myself that this is a heck of a college sport where you shout, 'Kill him, kill him.'" Economics professor Walter Morton launched the first serious campaign against boxing at the UW in the mid-1940s. He was widely criticized, and his crusade merely resulted in a 4-year athletics investigation that in 1953 ultimately found boxing safe enough to continue. Okay? So the first attempt to get rid of boxing, it didn't succeed. Yeah, Terrell says straight mob purse fighting was really gone. That's right, Terrell. So it was an outcome when the first attempt to get rid of it didn't succeed, but it was an outcome that would not fly a second time. Now, my objections to boxing wouldn't have changed depending on what a study would turn up, because I thought it aesthetically and morally improper, too, as a college sport, Feldman said. Feldman was not alone in his sense of disgust. By the late 1950s, universities across the country were engaged in a full-fledged debate about whether boxing was an appropriate extracurricular activity at colleges. Now, the tawdry image of professional boxing, which was closely associated with organized crime, didn't help at all, right? Several campuses, including many of the sports pioneering Eastern universities, had already eliminated boxing, making it increasingly difficult for the remaining schools to schedule a full season of matches. A lot of schools had dropped it, so that made it hard for the remaining schools to find schools to compete against. It was becoming clear to many insiders, including Walsh, that college boxing was on its knees. Yet, no one imagined how painful it would be to watch the final blow. Okay, so now we get to that fateful fight when Charlie Moore died. The fight that caused his death. Okay. Okay, here we go. The last haymaker. That's Charlie Moore on the screen there. April 9th, 1960 was a chilly night in Madison. The temperature hovering around freezing. Maybe that's why attendance for the NCAA boxing championship was down that year. The crowd numbered just under 9,800. Okay, it had been a tight tournament, and the last match would decide the championship: Wisconsin or San Jose State. The Badgers' shot at a ninth title rested on the shoulders of a talented young boxer who was once considered a possible Olympic contender and who was already carrying a heavy weight in his own mind. Many accounts of Charlie Moore include the decryptor Altar Boy. Originally from Merrick, New York, Moore was coached into coming to Wisconsin on a boxing scholarship. He was well respected in the ring and well liked on campus, known for buying meals for the homeless, returning lost money, and even giving away his Golden Gloves ring to a teammate who admired it. Moore was also unwell. Struggling with depression, Moore had secretly been undergoing electroshock therapy, which had jumbled his memory and left him disoriented. In 2000, Jim Doherty interviewed former UW boxers for Smithsonian Magazine and learned that Moore had told several people he was becoming increasingly apprehensive about fighting and was ready for his boxing career to be over. BN Boxing News in the building. What's up, BN Boxing News? Boxing in the States. Yeah, Wisconsin. And University of Wisconsin was where the boxer who died from a fight, and that's what caused the NCAA tournament to drop boxing, and many colleges dropped it. And that's Charlie Moore on the screen. That's him, and we're talking about that situation right now. But salute BN Boxing News. Yeah, Charlie Moore, and he was suffering from depression already before that happened. Now, a teammate became so concerned about Moore's mental state that he approached then coach Brett Woodward, who had led the team since 1958 as Walsh's hand-picked successor. Now, after consulting with Coach Walsh, after consulting with Walsh, Woodward decided to just let things play out with Moore, a decision that later drew sharp criticism from boxing's detractors. On April 9th, though everything seemed fine, the fight started off normally, with Moore sparring against San Jose's Stu Bartel. Both wore thickly padded gloves. Both wore headgear. Now, though the fight was close, it appeared Moore had won the first of the anticipated 3 two-minute rounds. In the second round, Bartel came out strong and delivered a powerful haymaker to the left side of Moore's forehead. The Badger went down. He got up, and seconds later, Bartel hit him again. This blow was not nearly as hard, but the referee ended the fight. Woodward and Walsh spoke briefly with Moore. From the stands, Lynch and Doherty watched. Deeply disappointed, Moore headed to the locker room, apologizing for his loss to those he passed along the way. He then lay down and began to go into a seizure. Okay? That was the worst thing he could have done, was lay down. You know, I don't know why they let him do that. but he laid down and went into a seizure. Now Moore was rushed to the hospital and into surgery. Dr. Manuka Javid operated, but the Badger fighter slipped into a coma. Shortly thereafter, Javid discussed the procedure with prominent surgeon Dr. Anthony Carreri, a former University of Wisconsin boxer himself, with close connections to the NCAA boxing committee. Now, Carreri promptly told Walsh, the coach, along with several reporters, that Moore had suffered from an aneurysm, a blood clot in the brain that could have hemorrhaged anything and was not necessarily linked to the fight. But Dr. Carreri was never in the operating room with Moore, and Dr. Javid repeatedly said publicly that Dr. Carreri's interpretation of Moore's injuries was nonsense. In actuality, the punch had ruptured a blood vessel in Moore's brain. The damage was most severe on the opposite side of his brain from the hit, a situation known as contracoup. But over Dr. Javid's protests, the aneurysm theory quickly gained traction among boxing supporters and in the media. On April 12, 1960, the Milwaukee Journal newspaper writer Kirkby reported that since Moore did not appear to take an unusually hard beating in the ring, doctors have suggested that his blood vessels were more than normally susceptible to injury. His language was similar to that used in many other articles published at the time. Now, for the next 40 years, the question of whether Moore was fatally hit or the victim of a pre-existing clot was the subject of debate, and one's view on the matter often correlated with one's opinion about college boxing in general. Now, many who had boxed for Walsh adopted his view that Moore had suffered an aneurysm unrelated to boxing, and some who had witnessed the fight firsthand would swear later that they never saw the punch happen. Now, Walsh took the claim one step further. Walsh years later would insist that Moore was never knocked down, that he didn't get hit hard enough. Complicating the situation is another mystery. The official video records went missing. In the year 2000, Doherty discovered that the second round of the fight had been erased entirely from the NCAA's copy of the fight footage, right? Oh, BBO Boxing is in Montreal, Canada. Salute. Okay, Cast Sports in Montreal, Canada today. Being broadcast in Montreal, Canada. We worldwide. Appreciate you, BN Boxing News. Enjoy yourself up there. Yeah, but the fight footage of the second round where this happened disappeared from the NCAA's copy of the fight footage. Now, Doherty thought the tape was lost forever, but a couple of years later, Moe managed to track down what he believes to be a copy of the University of Wisconsin's version from Wisconsin Public Television. Now, though the disappearance of the tape from the university's archives raises questions, Moe says he doesn't buy into the conspiracy theory that boxing supporters may have hidden or destroyed it, right? Now, Moe took the footage to Lynch's house, where the two watched it together and realized the truth was unequivocal. I had not had a real good perspective of the fight from where I stood, so the tape clarified things for me, says Lynch. It made it real clear to me that Charlie was hit with a couple of good, solid punches. Yeah, these are the two guys that was against boxing. So Lynch and Moe say the tape also shows clearly that Moore went down after the first punch. It was killing, Moe says. Now, in spite of Dr. Javid's efforts, Moore never regained consciousness. And after his death on April 17th, the University of Wisconsin faculty acted swiftly. On April 29th, the athletic board met to determine a recommendation to the faculty. Woodward pleaded for patience, suggesting Woodford is the coach. Coach Woodford pleaded for patience, suggesting blood modifications and other ways to clean up the sport. At the end of the extremely contentious meeting, the board agreed to recommend that the faculty hold off on making a final decision. But the academics had no interest in promises. They were ready for someone to take up the fight against boxing that Walter Morton had started 7 years earlier. Now, Feldman, the political professor who once attended a match in the Fieldhouse, says he found himself involved in the boxing debate quite by accident. His daughter was a friend of Charlie Moore, and both she and Feldman were upset by his death. One afternoon, while eating lunch with fellow professors in Tripp Commons at the Memorial Union, Feldman began talking about Moore. He recounted what happened next in his UW oral history. Somebody taunted me by saying, "Well, look, why do you just sit there and talk about it? Why don't you do something about it?" And since I'm an activist by nature, that's something no one must say to me, because I can't resist the temptation to rise to the challenge. So I said, well, I will. I took my placemat, turned it over, and wrote a motion addressed to the Secretary of the Faculty abolishing boxing. Professor Feldman circulated the placemat around the union to as many other graybeards as he could find and acquired enough signatures to move the motion forward. On May 9th, 1960, more than 500 people gathered to hear the faculty's verdict on the future of boxing on campus. To accommodate the crowd, the meeting was held in Music Hall, where the boxing matches were held. Professor Feldman submitted his motion and spoke very briefly. Then, not far from the very spot where the first ever UW boxing match was held, the faculty voted to discontinue it as an intercollegiate sport. Yep, they discontinued it. Just Do boxing in the building. What's up, Just Do? Here we talking about Wisconsin today, and that boxer who died as a result of his injuries in that match in 1960, he was the University of Wisconsin boxer. Okay, we was just talking about what happened. So because of that match, they voted to discontinue boxing at Wisconsin. A lot of colleges had already discontinued it before that death happened, but that was put the icing on the cake right there. So they voted to discontinue it, and boxing supporters did not speak. Now, the UW became the most symbolic domino to fall in what quickly became a cascade of university boxing bans. Yeah, that was the first that started it. Okay, it took only a year after the UW ban for the NCAA to discontinue boxing entirely because so many schools had abandoned it. They really didn't have enough schools to continue it, right? So as for Feldman, Professor Feldman, he had a difficult time in the immediate aftermath of the faculty verdict. And he said, the jocks never forgave me because he was the one that started it when he wrote that thing on that placemat in the lunchroom, and then he circulated, got all those signatures. Then he wrote a proposal to ban it. Yet he didn't regret the outcome of the vote, only the notoriety of his association with it. Right? He said, I'm mortified at the thought that my reputation will depend on the fact that I made the motion to kill boxing. I didn't think it was all that important. Now, almost immediately after the ban, some boxing supporters tried to keep an intramural club going on campus, but administrators quickly cracked down and did so again when Lynch took a group wearing UW colors to a collegiate competition in the 1990s. It appeared the sport was gone for good. And then the guy, Chandler Davis arrived, right? And he went about trying to start intramural boxing back up at the university, okay? And he was successful in doing that, right? And he got intramural boxing started back up in the 2000s. And right now, they still have intramural boxing at Wisconsin, but it took, I think it was like 2004. It took 54 years to get boxing back going again at the University of Wisconsin. Yeah, but I thought that was a pretty interesting story there, because we always talked about that college boxer that got killed in the ring, and it just happened to be the University of Wisconsin, who we're talking about today. Okay. So now we are to the part of the boxing in the States where we talk about boxers from Wisconsin. Okay. So let's talk about some boxers from Wisconsin. All right. We got 8 of them. 8 boxers from Wisconsin. First one is Edward McGorty from Eureka, Wisconsin. Okay. There's Edward McGorty from Eureka, Wisconsin. Wait a minute here. Get Edward up here. Okay. Edward McGorty. He's from Eureka. Here we go. Edward. Now, Edward, he was a middleweight boxer. He won the Australian version of the world middleweight title during his career. And Edward had a total of 133 fights. He won 89, lost 25, had 19 draws, 43 knockouts for Edward McGorty. Okay. Next boxer from Wisconsin, Jordan Schimmel, or Jordan Schimmel. Jordan Schimmel. There's Jordan right there. Jordan Schimmel. Okay. Jordan is from Sheboygan, Wisconsin. After this, we're going to finish up that Sugar Ray Robinson versus Jake LaMotta series we started yesterday, too. We're going to finish that up yesterday when we were interrupted. Jordan from Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Okay. He was a heavyweight boxer, best known for an amateur career. He won the National Golden Gloves and the U.S. Championship at 201 pounds in 2009. Jordan did. But he had a professional career of 20 wins, 2 losses, 16 knockouts, 80% knockout ratio. Okay. Orville Buckner. Okay. From La Crosse, Wisconsin. Orville Buckner. How about Orville real quick? Okay. Orville competed in the welterweight division during the early 1960s. Now, originally from La Crosse, Wisconsin, Buckner was known for his technical skill and determination in the ring, balancing his athletic pursuits with a full-time job in hospitality. And Buckner, he won 12. He only had 21 fights. He won 12, lost 4, had 5 draws, 7 knockouts. He only got like 10 of them. Phil Zwick. Phil is from Appleton, Wisconsin. Phil Zwick out of Appleton, Wisconsin. Okay. Phil became a pro boxer in 1923. In 1928, he fought former bantamweight champion Bud Taylor in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in his home state, where he lost by knockout. He fought future featherweight champion Freddie Miller in 1931 and also lost by knockout. And Phil Zwick, he won 81, lost 30, had 8 draws, wasn't no contest, 45 knockouts. Okay. Just got a couple more, then we're going to continue with Sugar Ray versus Jake LaMotta. Tyrone Trice from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Tyrone Trice from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Okay. Tyrone competed from 1983 to 1996. He's a one-time International Boxing Council (IBC) middleweight champion and WBA America's welterweight champion. Trice also had 2 world title challenges for the IBF welterweight and WBO middleweight titles. And Tyrone had a professional record of 43 wins, 10 losses, 35 knockouts for a career 81.3% knockout ratio. Not bad. Not bad at all. 3 more to go. Anthony Pettis, also from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Oh my goodness, I didn't change it. I don't even know where I'm at now. Wow. That's Tyrone on the left. Just got punched. That's Anthony Pettis right there. Yeah, that's Anthony. Made all these beautiful pictures. That's why I let y'all see him, right? Yeah, Anthony is from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He was mixed martial arts and boxing. And Anthony, he was a professional mixed martial artist and professional boxer. Now, Pettis formerly fought in the welterweight, lightweight, and featherweight divisions of the Ultimate Fighting Championship and Professional Fighters League. He's a former UFC lightweight champion. Okay, and as far as boxing, he only had 2 fights, 1-1. But MMA, he was 25-14. Mostly MMA for Anthony. And then, of course, Charlie Moore, the one we just talked about. Of course, Charlie was originally from New York, Merrick, New York, but he competed at the University of Wisconsin. Yeah, he was the one that died, from his injury. Remember, we just talked about Charlie. Yeah, Charlie was a middleweight college boxer for the University of Wisconsin-Madison. From New York City, he died of a brain hemorrhage following NCAA tournament fight 8 days earlier with Stu Bartell at San Jose State University in 1960. Charlie Moore. So, of course, he didn't have a pro record because he died, in college. And finally, Rick Rufus, the final one. Rick Rufus. I think he had a lot more MMA too. Rick Rufus from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's the final of our boxers from Wisconsin. And then we're going to pick back up with Sugar. We might just start over because we were right at the beginning. Sugar Ray and Jake, we barely got into it yesterday, remember? Rick Rufus from Milwaukee. Now, he's a kickboxing world champion. He also competed professionally in boxing and mixed martial arts. Now, he was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but he fought out of Tempe, Arizona. Rufus won multiple world titles across various weight classes, including the WKA North American Super Heavyweight Championship and the WKA World Super Heavyweight Championship. He also defeated Australia's WKA World Champion Grant the Bomber Barker. And as far as boxing, he had 19 fights. He won 13, lost 5, 1 draw, 11 knockouts. Okay. Now let's finish up the Sugar Ray and first Jake LaMotta. He started yesterday. We always talk about Sugar Ray, but we never really dug into those 6 fights. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to look at those 6 fights between those 2 warriors. Great series between them. Tablet at, man. I don't even know where I put it at. Gee, nigga. I can't find it, man. I haven't been anywhere. Bear with me for a moment, please. This is crazy. Oh, there it is. Behind me. I need you there. Let's get that going. I should have had it ready. I'm sorry. Sugar Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta. Okay. Give me like 1 minute. How's everybody? We're late in the week now. Remember, tomorrow the profile is John L. Sullivan, the Boston Strong Boy, going way back into the 1800s. And remember, John L. Sullivan was the last bare knuckles champion. And then when they went to the glove era, he was the first glove champion. Okay? Last bare knuckles champion and the first glove champion. That's a trivia question. 2 trivia questions. He's the answer to both of them. Who was the last glove champion? And who was the first bare knuckles champion, right? Okay. Okay. Yeah, let's go with LaMarr versus Sugar Ray Robinson. We're gonna start at the top because we didn't get that deep into it yesterday. Okay. Okay, because we was right. Yeah. Sugar Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta had a historic boxing rivalry, fighting each other on 6 separate occasions between 1942 and 1951. Robinson won the series 5-1, although many of the fights were close, with LaMotta handing Robinson his first ever loss, which remained his only loss for nearly a decade. And the most famous of their encounters was their 6th and final fight, a world middleweight title fight later dubbed the St. Valentine's Day Massacre due to its brutality, and it happened on Valentine's Day, February 14th, with the champion LaMotta taking tremendous punishment from Robinson in the later rounds. Okay? Now, a little quick background on the series. Both fighters had begun their careers in the 1940s, and their first meeting would take place relatively early into both men's careers. Now, going into the first fight, LaMotta had a decent record of 25 wins, 4 losses, 2 draws, gaining a reputation as a tough fighter. All of his losses up to that point were on points, and many were controversial. Now, Robinson, on the other hand, was a rising star with an undefeated record of 35-0 going into the first fight with Jake, along with an undefeated amateur record of 85-0. So Sugar Ray had never lost in his life, amateur or professional at that point. Now, both men had very different fighting styles. Jake was a classic swarmer, relentlessly pursuing his opponents while constantly throwing barrages of punches to overpower his opponents. Meanwhile, Sugar Ray had a much more fluid style, depending upon the opponent he was fighting, either boxing from the outside with precision or brawling at close quarters. Now, these conflicting styles combined with their respective courage and durability made them naturally tough opponents for each other. Yeah, this is where we left off yesterday, okay? Initial fights, 1942 to 1945, okay? Now, Robinson and LaMotta fought for the first time on October 2nd, 1942. The fight was held at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Now, despite Robinson holding a height and reach advantage over his opponent, LaMotta was heavier, coming in at 158 pounds compared to Robinson's 145. The undefeated Robinson was given 5-1 odds to win the fight and went on to dominate most of the fight, aside from some trouble in the first and 7th rounds. Now, Robinson stayed on the move and outboxed LaMotta to a unanimous decision win, with unofficial scorecards from newspapers giving LaMotta only 2 of the 10 rounds, right? Okay, so Jake is 1-0 Sugar Ray. Now, the pair would have a rematch 4 months later on February 5th, 1943, this time at Olympia Stadium in Detroit. LaMotta came to this fight even heavier than before at 160 pounds, while Robinson weighed 144 pounds. Robinson was once again a favorite, this time having 3-1 odds of defeating his opponent. LaMotta fought much more aggressively this time, keeping constant pressure on Robinson throughout the fight. Instead of sticking and moving as he had before, Robinson attempted to slug it out with LaMotta, which proved to be a mistake. In the 8th round, LaMotta landed a right to the body, followed by a left hook to the head, which sent Robinson falling backwards and through the ropes. Robinson was nearly knocked out, but was saved by the bell at the referee's count of 9. Okay, the bell rang at 9, so he was saved. Robinson survived the rest of the fight, but ultimately lost on points in another unanimous decision, scored 52-47, 55-45, and 57-49. This defeat would mark the end of Robinson's undefeated win streak of 40 professional fights, along with his undefeated amateur record of 85 fights, though he would soon begin another very impressive winning streak. Okay, now this is crazy here. Now remember, the second fight was February 5th, 1943. Listen to this. A third fight was held 3 weeks later on February 26th, 1943. 3 weeks later. Of course, at the same venue. They didn't have time to go anywhere else. With Robinson looking to avenge his only loss of his career from LaMotta. Now, Robinson utilized his boxing skills to full effect in this fight, jabbing from a distance and countering LaMotta's pressure effectively. Now, despite this, the fight was still difficult, with LaMotta fighting harder in the later rounds. Robinson was badly hurt in the 7th round, being knocked down in his own corner, and later admitting that he chose to stay down for the full 8 count to recover. Now, Robinson rallied this time after going the 10-round distance. Robinson won another unanimous decision, 51-49, 56-44, and 53-47. And those were some ridiculous scores. 51-49 was about right. 56-44. I don't think that woman Adelaide Bird was judging way back then, but that was terrible. Okay. So it's now 2-1 for Sugar Ray Robinson, right? 2-1. The 4th fight was held on February 23rd, 1945 at Madison Square Garden, the location of their first fight. LaMotta suffered a cut over the forehead in the opening round, but fought on. Like the 3rd fight, Robinson utilized his boxing skills and scored well for most of the fight, despite surviving a scare in the 6th round when he was trapped in a corner and forced to take punishment. The fight was another victory for Robinson, who won the fight 6-3 and 7-1. He was getting some generous scores. I actually thought that was one of the ones that Jake won. 7-1 was ridiculous. Yeah, that was the 4th fight. It's now 3-1 for Sugar Ray. Okay? Let's check the chat real quick. I don't want to miss any of my people coming in. All good. Okay. So the 5th fight was held on September 26, 1945 at Comiskey Park in Chicago. This would be the closest fight of the series. I also think Jake won this one. This was the 3rd one for Jake. Jake should have won 2, 4, and 5, but they only gave him 2. This would be the closest fight of the series, with Jake LaMotta fighting aggressively to defeat his old rival. Unlike the previous fights, this fight was held for 12 rounds instead of 10. Now, LaMotta hoped that this would give him an advantage, and it did. But Robinson stacked up a wide lead early in the fight before pulling back his pace to fight more cautiously in the later round. Robinson won yet another, but this time it was a very close split decision, 61-59, 61-59, and 63-57 for Jake, which was right. 2 judges gave the Sugar Ray by 2 points. 1 gave it to Jake by 6, which was the correct score. And the crowd booed the decision, right? Robinson would later state that this was his hardest fight with LaMotta. And I think he lost that one. But the judges didn't think so. That's what counted, right? So it's 4-1 Sugar Ray now. Now, the fifth fight between the pair would be the duo's final fight for over 5 years. During the later half of the decade, that's when World War II was going on. A lot of Sugar Ray went to the war. I think Jake did too. I know Sugar Ray did. He just boxed exhibition. During the later half, so they didn't fight again between the fifth and sixth fight. 5 years went past. During the later half of the decade, both men rose through the ranks of their respective weight classes. Robinson remained undefeated since his loss to LaMotta back in 1943 and went on to win the world welterweight title in 1946, a title he successfully defended 5 times before moving up in weight to fight for the middleweight title. LaMotta would go on to win the world middleweight title in 1949 after defeating champion Marcel Cerdan. LaMotta would defend his middleweight title 2 times before facing off with Robinson for the final time on Valentine's Day of 1951. Okay, so let's go to the 6th fight. Sugar Ray already got the series 1. He's up 5-1, remember. Thomas Hill. What's up, Thomas Hill? Yeah, we went back and covered the, we had some time after Wisconsin, the Sugar Ray and Jake LaMotta series. Thomas Hill. Right after Thomas Hill came in yesterday, we went down. Thank you, Thomas Hill. It wasn't your fault. Okay, but let's continue. This is the final fight in the series, right? Robinson and LaMotta fought each other for the last time on February 14th, 1951, Valentine's Day, at the Chicago Stadium, Chicago, Illinois. This fight would be held for the World's Middleweight Championship, now held by LaMotta. Robinson entered the fight a 3-1 favorite over LaMotta. The champion started the fight swinging and fought effectively in the early rounds, but soon found himself falling behind under Robinson's onslaught of combinations and counter punches. Robinson stacked together a wide lead over the course of the next 10 rounds, but in the 11th, Robinson was hurt by LaMotta, who pounded away at the challenger, unanswered in an attempt to put his opponent down. Now, despite the pressure, Robinson eventually responded with a barrage of his own punches, battering the now exhausted champion for the remainder of the round. Robinson continued to punish LaMotta in the subsequent rounds. Robinson once again gave LaMotta another beating in the 12th, but was unable to put the champion down. In the this was the first one that went 15 rounds too. In the 13th round, Robinson continued to pummel the hurt champion, who amazingly was able to stay standing under the constant punching. Robinson sent LaMotta against the ropes, and following a brutal series of unanswered punches, which seemed to be finally sending champion down, referee Frank Sakura rushed in to end the fight. Robinson won the fight by TKO, 2 minutes and 4 seconds into the 13th round. Robinson was now the new middleweight champion of the world. That was the first of 4 times he won the middleweight title. Now, what's the legacy of this series? I know Jake said he fought Sugar Ray so much he's surprised he didn't get sugar diabetes. But what was the legacy of this series? Legacy. Okay. Now, following the final fight, Robinson would go on to fight 14 more middleweight championship fights, winning the title a record 5 times. First to 5. That's 5. He won 5 times over the course of the decade. He also fought unsuccessfully against Joey Maxim for the world light heavyweight title. He succumbed to heat exhaustion in that one. He would continue to fight until well past his prime, retiring in 1965. After losing the title to Sugar Ray, LaMotta made an attempt to move up to light heavyweight, but never fought for another world title and retired in 1954. Both fighters were inaugural inductees of the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990. Sugar Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta's rivalry is regarded as one of the greatest in boxing history. Boxing publications Bleacher Report and The Fight City both ranked their fights as the second greatest boxing rivalry of all time, behind only Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali. The fights between the two men are an important part Martin Scorsese's 1980 biographical sports film, Raging Bull. The film starred Robert De Niro as LaMotta and actor Johnny Barnes played Sugar Ray Robinson. The film was critically acclaimed, being nominated for 8 Oscars at the 53rd Academy Awards, winning 2, including Best Actor, awarded to De Niro for his portrayal of LaMotta. And the film is now regarded as one of the greatest films in history. Okay, there you have it. Take LaMotta and Sugar Ray Robinson. Okay, so now let me ask y'all a question. What time is it? That wasn't a question. How did boxers in the 1800s fight for 70 plus rounds without gassing? Glad y'all asked. Okay, let's look at that. How did those old school, I know of a fight went 110 rounds. Okay, 110 rounds. It started on Thursday evening. It didn't end until Friday morning. Okay, and it ended in a draw. Both of them just said, the hell with it. Because they both just kept coming to toe the mark to begin the next round, because there was no limit on rounds and, it was no limit on the time. Once the fighter went down, you got 30 seconds in your corner, and then you come back and toe the mark, the next round started. And they did that 110 times before neither one of them came out for the 111th round. They was like, forget that. But they went 100. So how did these boxers do that, though? Let's talk about it. Keep coming out there all those rounds like that. How did they do that? Glad y'all asked. Okay. Appreciate it. Now, boxers in the 1800s often fought extraordinarily long fights, sometimes exceeding 70 or even 100 rounds, due to a combination of factors, including the rules of the sport of the era, training methods, and the physical conditioning of the fighters. Here are some key reasons why they could endure such grueling fights. Number 1, fighting style and rules. Bare knuckle boxing. Early boxing was primarily bare knuckle, which encouraged a different fighting style. Fighters often focused on stamina and strategy rather than knockout power. They relied on wearing down their opponents than a quick finish. Okay? Rounds and rest. Many fights were not divided into time rounds, as in modern boxing. Instead, fights continued until one fighter could no longer continue, with breaks in between for rest. This allowed boxers to recover, albeit briefly, during the breaks. Physical conditioning. Training regimen. The boxers of that era had rigorous training routines that emphasized endurance. They engaged in long-distance running, calisthenics, and sparring, which helped build their stamina. Okay, here's a big one. Lifestyle. Many fighters led physically demanding lives outside the ring, which contributed to their overall fitness. Boxers were workers. Working class boxers often engaged in physical labor-intensive jobs that kept them in shape. Yeah, they had jobs outside of boxing, like construction and stuff like that, was essentially training, lifting up all these bricks and boards and all that kind of stuff. They didn't have all that technology back then, like forklifts and all that. You had to manually carry those boards and bricks and stuff from place to place. Or like a wheelbarrow, that physical labor kept them in shape too, right? Mental toughness, okay? Cultural attitudes. The 1800s had a different cultural view of toughness and masculinity. Fighters were expected to endure pain and fatigue, and there was a strong emphasis on resilience. Stamina over speed, okay? Stamina over speed. The emphasis on stamina rather than speed or explosive power meant that fighters trained to maintain their energy over long periods rather than relying on quick bursts of energy. Nutrition and recovery. Diet. Now, while the understanding of nutrition was not as advanced as it is today, boxers likely consumed diets that, while simple, were sufficient for their energy needs. Many also used natural remedies for recovery. Rest. The breaks between rounds allowed for some recovery, enabling fighters to regain composure and continue fighting. Evolution of the sport. Now, changes in boxing. As boxing has evolved, the introduction of gloves, timed rounds, and more structured rules changed the nature of fights. Modern training techniques, nutrition, and recovery methods have also advanced, leading to different physical demands on fighters today. In summary, the combination of fighting style, conditioning, cultural attitudes, and the structure of fights contributed to the ability of 19th century boxers to endure such lengthy fights. Now, while modern fighters may focus on explosive power and speed, historical boxers emphasize endurance, allowing them to last for longer periods in the ring, right? Now, what were some famous matches from that era that exemplified these long fights? What were some famous matches that show what we were talking about? Let's look at some fights that demonstrate these things. Look at some long fights, okay? Let's look at some long fights. Okay. Now, several famous fights from the 1800s exemplify the long, grueling fights characteristic of that era. Here are a few notable examples. John L. Sullivan versus Jake Kilrain, 1889. This fight lasted 75 rounds. Now, this was one of the most famous bare-knuckle fights in history. Sullivan, the first recognized heavyweight champion of glove boxing, faced Kilrain in a fight that lasted over 2 hours. Sullivan eventually won by knockout, but both fighters showcased incredible endurance. Tommy McCarthy versus John L. Sullivan, 1884. 48 rounds. And remember, John L. Sullivan is our profile tomorrow. This one went 48 rounds. Another notable fight featuring Sullivan. This fight demonstrated the endurance of both fighters. Sullivan won by knockout, but the length of the fight highlighted the stamina required in bare knuckles boxing. Joe Gans versus Oscar Nelson, 1906. 42 rounds. Now, although this fight was in the early 1900s, it showcased the continuation of long fights. Gans, known for his skill and endurance, defeated Nelson, further proving the stamina that fighters possessed in that period. Peter Jackson versus Jim Corbett, 1891. This fight went 61 rounds. This fight was never officially completed, but it exemplified the long, tough fights of the era. Jackson was a formidable opponent, and the fight was notable for its length and intensity, demonstrating the fighter's conditioning. John O'Sullivan again versus Paddy Ryan, 1882. It was only 9 rounds, but it was notable for its intensity. Sullivan's win over Ryan marked his rise in boxing. While shorter than some others, the fight was fiercely contested and set the stage for Sullivan's legendary status. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. These matches highlight the incredible endurance and toughness of boxers in the 1800s, reflecting the different nature of the sport during that time. Okay? A couple more things. Now, how did the introduction of gloves change the fighter's strategies and fight outcomes? How did the introduction of gloves change strategy and outcomes? Now, the introduction of gloves in boxing significantly altered fighters' strategies and outcomes in several key ways. Okay? In several key ways. Increase safety, reduce injuries. Gloves cushion punches, which reduces the risk of cuts and facial injuries. This allowed fighters to take more risks without the same fear of severe damage. Fewer knockouts. With gloves, knockouts became less frequent in some cases, as fighters could absorb punches better and continue fighting. Fighting style. More aggressive tactics. Fighters could throw punches with greater frequency and power without worrying as much about injuring their hands. This led to a more aggressive style of fighting. Volume over power. Boxers began to focus on throwing a higher volume of punches rather than relying solely on knockout power. This shift encouraged strategies that emphasize points accumulation. Defensive techniques. Increased emphasis on defense. With gloves, fighters developed more sophisticated defensive strategies, such as head movement and blocking, since they could afford to engage more closely without fear of immediate injury. Holding and clinching. Fighters began to utilize holding and clinching more strategically, using gloves to control opponents without taking significant damage. Endurance and stamina. Longer fights. Glove fights often lasted longer, as fighters could endure the accumulation of punches. This led to a greater emphasis on conditioning and stamina in training. Let me see, I can understand that. Glove fights often lasted longer as fighters could endure the accumulation of punches. Okay, right. This led to a greater emphasis on conditioning and stamina in training. Pacing. Boxers learned to pace themselves differently as they could engage in sustained exchanges without the immediate threat of injury. Judging and scoring. Point-based strategy. The introduction of gloves coincided with changes in scoring, leading fighters to adopt strategies that prioritize winning rounds through effective scoring rather than solely seeking knockouts. And psychological impact. Confidence. Fighters often felt more confident with gloves, knowing they could withstand more punishment. This psychological aspect could influence fight outcomes, leading to bolder strategies. Overall, the introduction of gloves transformed boxing from a more brutal bare-knuckle sport to a more strategic and nuanced competition. Fighters adapted their approaches to leverage the advantage of gloves, leading to a significant evolution in the sport's tactics and overall dynamics. Yeah. And remember, tomorrow we're going to do a profile on the man that was the last bare knuckles champion and the first glove champion, the Boston Strong Boy, John L. Sullivan. That's tomorrow. Okay, one more thing. Now, what training methods did these boxers use to build their endurance? Okay, what training methods did they use to build their endurance? Let's look at that right quick. Okay. Now, boxers in the 1800s used a variety of training methods to build their endurance, focusing on overall physical conditioning and stamina. Here are some key methods they employed. Long distance running, endurance training. Boxers often ran several miles daily to build cardiovascular endurance and improve overall stamina. Calisthenics, bodyweight exercises. They perform exercises like push-ups, squats, and sit-ups to strengthen muscles and improve endurance without weights. Sparring, controlled fights. Regular sparring sessions help fighters practice techniques while building endurance in a realistic setting. Bag work. Heavy bags. Hitting heavy bags helped improve striking power and endurance, allowing boxers to work on their technique and stamina simultaneously. Shadow boxing. Okay? Shadow boxing. Technique and footwork. Boxers practice footwork and movement through shadow boxing, which also contributed to cardiovascular conditioning. We're talking about what some of these old school boxers, what kind of training they did to be able to fight all those rounds like that 50, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100. And interval training, short bursts of intense activity. Though not formalized, fighters often engaged in bursts of high intensity work followed by periods of rest, mimicking the demands of an actual fight. Strength training, weightlifting. While less common back then, some boxers incorporated light weights or other resistance training to build overall strength and power. And remember, a lot of those fighters worked physically labor demanding jobs. So that was like a part of training, That's why they didn't have to lift too many weights, because you didn't have forklifts and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, you want to move bricks, you either carry them or boards, or you put them in the wheelbarrow and physically take them from place to place. So that was like a form of training, their actual work, 9 to 5. Diet and nutrition, balanced diet. Although, they didn't have nutritionists and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they still had practice balanced diets. They focused on consuming a balanced diet to support their training, often relying on whole foods that provided necessary energy and nutrients. Recovery techniques, rest and recuperation. Adequate rest was emphasized to allow the body to recover after intense training sessions. And mental conditioning. Toughness training. Boxers engaged in mental preparation and resilience training, fostering the mindset to endure long fights. These methods combine to create well-rounded fighters capable of enduring the grueling demands of their sport. The emphasis on stamina and conditioning set the foundation for their remarkable endurance in the ring. Joaquin Arizola. Appreciate you, Joaquin. I think Joaquin been in here before. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed, Joaquin. Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Cash Sports The Box Historian, bringing you all that boxing. Right? Y'all know what happened if it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. But salute, Joaquin. We got like 15 minutes. We're going to get a little link time now. Everybody is welcome to hit the link. Okay. Encouraged to hit it. Anybody not liked and subscribe, like and subscribe, please. And today we got Joaquin Arizola, Thomas Hill, Just Do Boxing, BN Boxing News, Mike Mazik, Terrell Cameron, Bruce Gas, Boxing Jazz, and more, VBO Sports TV, and the executive director and the head person in charge of Cash Sports, Miss Cass. Okay, I'm just a peon here. She found another box story, and I could be gone any day. Any day I could be out of here. But how's everybody, man? It's Thursday. We're almost back to the fights again already. These weeks are going by like crazy, man. It's Thursday. Unbelievable. I guess we're gonna have the some weigh-ins and stuff. No. Final press conferences today, right? And yeah, we're going to get the link, and then we're going to look at what's happening this weekend in the Sweet Science, in the Squared Circle. But, and then, yeah, let me get it in there. Quiet for a second. Let's see. Yeah, but you can like, subscribe, super chat, cash app. But the main things is like and subscribe. They are free, right? And they are very appreciated. At 9:21 when I started, I'm trying to get to 1,000. 79 away. 79 away from 1,000. Rome wasn't built in a day. We're gonna get there. Okay, sooner than you think. I don't know what I did. Bear with me. It'll be 4 o'clock in time for Just Do in a minute. Time for Just Do in a minute. I guess that's right. I'm not a technology person. Told y'all one time I was struggling to get the link in, and Aunt McQueen put it in from where he was at. Yeah, but there it is. Anybody, we got 15 minutes to chop it up. All are welcome to hit it. Come up for a few minutes and talk. Tell me how much you liked the show, how much you hated it, whatever. I ain't gonna cry till 4 o'clock if you hated it. But this was, we got one more Boxing in the States episode. Next week will be Wyoming, and that's it. We went through every state in the United States and did a little boxing history on it. Other significant events concerning boxing, like famous venues or famous fights that occurred in the states, and then some of the boxers from the states. One more to go, Wyoming. That's it, right? Wisconsin. I can't think of any states start with X, Y, Z. So I think Wyoming is it. And that's next week. And then we'll be through. Okay, let's see what's happening this weekend. We're going to see what's happening on Just Do Boxing coming up at 4. Give you a little preview of that. Because, we're going to get that fire boxing talk. Balanced, unbiased. Both sides of everything. And you get it right. Everybody gets to Just Do at Just Do Boxing. Everybody. And that's coming up next at 4 o'clock. That's what I'm warming you up for. Okay. I'm the co-main. Warming you up for the main event. Coming up at 4. And let's see. Coming up on Just Do Boxing today. What's happening? Okay. Now, Brian Norman Jr., brutal knockout in Japan. Boots moves to 154. Hitchens and Sean Haney exchange words. Coming up next on Just Do Boxing at 4 p.m. Wow, that should be good. Yeah, Norman looked good this morning. And Boots booty 154. Oh, man. Oh, it's official. I didn't hear about it. I got to see Hitchens and Sean Haney exchange words. Yeah, I got to see what that's all about. That'll be coming up at 4 p.m. in about 10 minutes on Just Do Boxing. Okay? And tomorrow on Cat Sports is going to be the life and career of the Boston Strong Boy, John L. Sullivan. We're going to go back to we do a profile every Friday, and we're going way back in the 1800s. And like I said, he was the last bare knuckles champion. And then the Queensberry rules came along and mandated everybody use gloves. So John L. Sullivan said, bare knuckles gloves, I'm still going to be the champion. He was the first glove champion. So y'all can change gloves, bare knuckles to gloves. I'm still going to be the champion. And he was the first glove champion. Okay? So that move didn't hurt him. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. I don't think we ever did Sugar Ray Robinson profile, and that's going to be, we got today. And then, the first Friday of every month, it's an active boxing. Now, we started with Canelo. And the first Friday next month, y'all already know who it's going to be. Give y'all one guess. Who y'all think it's going to be? First Friday of next month. We did Canelo. It's going to be Gervonta Tank Davis, of course. Do an active boxer first Friday of every month. Gervonta Tank Davis, first Friday in July. Okay? life and career of Tank. Okay, well, I'm gonna look at what's going on this weekend. Then we're gonna get on up out of here. Get ready for Just Do Boxing. Told y'all what's happening over there. Don't meet me there. Beat me there. Now, Saturday is June 21st, right? Coming out of Newark, New Jersey, we got Vito Melnicki versus Kamil Gordzelek, right? Damian Naba, Marcin Stevie, Jahai Tucker on the card. Ooh, that's the good one there. Jahai and Truck. Jahai Tucker and Truck System. Brandon Lee back in action. Brandon Lee. That's a pretty good card. That's a ESPN Plus. Bob Father joint. Yeah, that's a Bob Father joint. Great card, man. Yeah, headlined by Vito Melnicki. And that's I'm looking forward to that one. Jahai Tucker and Truck Simpson. Man. Middleweights. 2 young up-and-coming middleweights. That's how it's going to be, man. These young guys get in there and get out now. Don't wait. What you marinating for? Get it in now, right? Get it on in now. You know? And then get it in again later. Hey, nobody worried about you having one loss. Sometimes a loss is better than a win in some situations. For some fighters need a loss. Get it in now and then get it in again later. You know? Hey. Then we got another card coming out of Birmingham. Ooh, that is it. Ooh, that's a big card. So those fights gonna probably start early. Man, look at that's a lot of them. But then we got one coming out of Birmingham, England on the Zone. Right? Goliath 5, Francisco Rodriguez Jr. That's down in the lower classes flyweight. Connor Walker and Liam Taylor. Peter McGrail on there. This is from England. That's our second card up tomorrow. Then we got another one from San Fe, California. Callum Walsh and Elijah Espadas. So that's 4 cards Saturday. That was 1, England. 3, that's the third one from California. Yeah, and that's it. We got one Friday next week, though. Next Friday. Christian and Billy back in action. It's been a while. I remember him for a while. He's going up against Selecki. And Billy. Yeah. Mark Madov on there. So yeah. We're in good shape. It's about the summer is heating up. Then we got that I think that's July. I'm thinking about Berlanga. The Berlanga card. Yeah, you know, the 28th, Jake Paul and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Yeah, gotta pay no attention to Jake Paul. Jack Catterall back in action July 5th. I'm trying to find out the Berlanga. Yeah, Katie and Amanda July 11th. But it's a Berlanga fight. Shadeja Green on that one, on that card. Shadeja is and Savannah Marshall. For Savannah's IBF. Savannah just got the IBF and WBO. Fran Chon got the other 2. There it is, July 12th. That's what I was looking for. But let's get ready to get up out of Dodge, y'all. Okay. So again, we had who we had in the building today? Joaquin Arizola. Thomas Hill, Just Do Boxing, BN Boxing News, Mike Mazik, Terrell Cameron, Bruce Gas Boxing Jazz, and more. VVO Sports TV, Mr. Cass. And I know everybody, most people subscribe, but if you're not subscribed to any of these channels, subscribe to them, like VVO Sports TV, Bruce Gas, BN Boxing News, Just Do Boxing. Anybody else got a channel? Everybody welcome to put the link in there in a little bit of time we got left. And yeah, that's who was in the building today. And the Warriors out there watching. I appreciate everybody for stopping through today. Okay? We're going to do it again tomorrow. The Boston Strong Boy, John L. Sullivan. life and career. All right. So let's get on up out of here. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Boxtorian, bringing you all that boxing history. Just Do Boxing straight ahead, 4 p.m. This is Cash Sports. Appreciate everybody. Have a great afternoon. The Hands of Stone.